Morning, everybody. We'll declare the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting open. A warm welcome to all the elected members, members of staff and media that are here, as well as our friends from Audit New Zealand. Before we start, the Chair's opening statement, the live streaming and recording of the meeting. I remind all present that the open session of this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and that recording will be made available on the Bay of Plenty Regional Council website following the meeting. I also remind all present that local government decision-making affords no protection to councillors, council officers and the public for comments made during the meeting that are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. Okay, apologies. We have no apologies. We have Te Taru online. So that's great to have everyone here. Public forum, nobody's requested to speak at the public forum. Items not on the agenda, there are no late items. Order of business, there is no proposed change in the order of business. Are there any declarations of interest on any items on this particular agenda? Bruce.
Yes, thank you, Stuart. And I just want to remind the committee of some of my commitments because they do come up either in the annual report or indeed in the PX. And simply that is that I chair the MPI Audit and Risk Committee, and there's a wee bit there, not much. And also in the papers there is discussion around Iress NextGen, and I'm an independent director on Regional Software Holdings Limited, which is the provider of Iress NextGen. And Stuart, I do need to also actually owe you a total update, but I would want to just reflect that last Friday I retired from my role of chair of the Auckland Audit and Risk Committee. So that previously had been a matter when we had discussed port matters. If it had come to it, that's no longer relevant to me now that I've stood down. Thank you.
Are there any others? They'll be noted. Public excluded business to be transferred into the open. You will note there are a number of recommendations that items will be transferred in the open once the Chief Executive is satisfied that that's appropriate. Any others? Okay, we'll now move on to the minutes to be confirmed, and these are the Risk and Assurance minutes of 14 June on page 11 of our agenda, of the printed agenda. Any questions, queries, corrections of those minutes? If not, we have a recommendation that we confirm those. I'm happy to move. Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Bruce. Any discussion? Put that. All in favour, say aye. Against, carried. So now on to the first report, and this was prepared by General Manager Matt Taylor, Chairperson's report. Speak to it, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to add to the report other than just to remind members of the committee that it's the forward-looking and backward-looking programme for this committee. And of course, we will add items to this committee that are either referred by council or another committee, or indeed that members of this committee request for future reference. But this is an item that comes before council for attention only.
Thank you. So there are two work programs there, one which is completed, and I want to acknowledge the staff for making sure a number of those items that have now been signed off and completed. There are a few loose ends here and there, but that's all wrapped up, and where we're at the moment through to June 24. Any questions, queries or comments on that report? If not, we'll go to the recommendation for that we receive the Chairperson's report. To have a mover, thank you, Andrew. Second, Kevin. Is there any further discussion? I'll put that. All in favour, say aye. Against, carried. Okay, now on to one of the main parts of our report, and this is Audit New Zealand's interim report in terms of our year-end 30 June 23, and welcome Leon and Warwick up here with our team. Pauline and Kamaran.
Good morning, members of the committee. So this report is essentially to give you an overview of the content of the interim audit management report for the 30 June 23 financial year end. In essence, the report covers recommendations, essentially of which 4 recommendations, 5 are open, 4 of which will be followed up in the process of being followed up by audit through the final audit visit, which is currently underway. And 1 recommendation from previous years, which has been confirmed as closed. There's 8 recommendations from that have been prioritized as necessary and 1 prioritized as beneficial, and none of which have been categorized as urgent. So in essence, that's a summary of the findings at this stage, and happy to take any questions on that.
So we'll now consider the items in the report. Bruce.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Kimara and Leon, for the report. No big drama. I just want to check on one of management's responses, if I could, Kimara, and it might seem a bit picky, but it's only to understand because I think it's important. Under the procurement policy, the last text in italics, which says management will be updated, do you actually mean governance will be updated, or is it actually management? The reason I asked that question, mildly important, is that procurement is a key part to our oversight of efficiency and also security in terms of purchasing. And I would make an assumption that governance would be consulted on the procurement policy and indeed the procurement manual in terms of overall strategy and approach, not its implementation necessarily, but we would see that. It just says that last sentence, management will be updated. I presume that meant governance will be updated and views sought.
That's correct. That'll include governance as well.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, good. Well, just clarity. Thank you. Sure, that's fine. That's good.
Any other questions or queries? Councillor McMillan.
Oh yeah, that's also to do with the procurement. And I probably sounded like a scratch record, but there's a whole piece around social procurement, and I'm sort of still, I know there is work done and that we have something, and I'm wondering if that, what I'm missing in my head is an overarching procurement policy, including our social procurement, and we also have something around Māori procurement, which I can't remember what that document's called, and I have seen that document, and I suppose I'm just thinking, where can I go to see all of that? I've brought it up a couple of times, and I know it's kind of floating around and coming to us, but yeah, just flagging it again.
Just have a response where we're at with the updated procurement policy. Current one, that would be available to Councillor McMillan. Any review of that coming forward?
So we'll look into that and provide an update on that.
Just for a bit of clarity, it sort of stems from a strategy and policy meeting where we had a presenter who asked us about our social procurement policy, who's from the social sector. And so we had a commitment to sort of get back to her with that framework, and it's sort of still pending, and I suppose that's why, partly why I'm kind of wanting to chase it up, but Namuta will be aware of that as well. Thanks.
Leon, on this report, are you comfortable as independent auditor where we're at with these 9 items and progress of?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and thank you. May I quickly introduce Warren Goslet? He's the audit manager on the job, and I don't think he's attended before. Just in case someday I'm not around and he shows up, you don't worry about who he is. But yeah, no, overall we're comfortable with that. I think the question about social procurement, probably that's more around the procurement process overall, while we're looking at the procurement policy. But management will probably have a better idea on that.
Any other questions of this report? If not, we have a recommendation on page 21.
Happy to move
We
that, Stuart.
received it. Thank you, Bruce. Second by Andrew. Is there any further discussion? I'll put that. All in favour, say aye. Against, carried. Now on to the progress update of our draft annual report for year end 23. And Kamaran, do you wish to lead us off on this?
This report essentially provides a status update on the audit process at this point in time. Attached to the report is the draft annual report, which sets out council's and the group's financial and non-financial performance for the 30 June 23 financial year. In addition to that, audit and the finance team are working quite closely and having regular communication through the audit process. And as at the time of the report, the audit progress was around 70%, and members of the audit team can give you a current update on that process. As it stands, verbal clearance was signalled originally per the draft plan as the 13th of October, with the 26th of October envisaged as the council adoption of the annual report. So these dates are consistent with the plan as at this point in time, and again, subject to any updates from the audit team on that. On page 29 of the agenda, there's a table under section 1, essentially covering off the status of the different elements of the annual report process and where things are at this stage. Happy to take any questions on the content.
Thank you, Kamaran. Any questions? Bruce?
Thank you, already on. Just Kamaran, just one question. Great to see the progress, by the way, and I think it looks like we're on track, Leon, which is tremendous. That's what it says. So that's great news, given we all know that we had to bring this into the old normal time of 31 October. Just expand for me, if you could, the valuation and accounting for the CCOs. I presume that's in the parent level, is that right?
That's correct, yes. The outstanding work that we required to have been performed for that was the valuation of our new CCO, Regional Holding Software Limited. That piece of work has now been completed and is with Audit New Zealand for their review.
Brilliant. I'm just conscious that we noted below that the put option valuation methodology is being done. I just wanted to make certain that we had agreed the methodology for the valuation of our CCOs, and it sounds like we have. So that's superb. Stuart, that's fine. That's from me. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess the point of this process is to make sure that what we're going to present to the council is a true reflection of the year. And Leon, to date, can you give us your reflections on, one, the process, the quality of the information you've been given, from our staff, and any other matters you may wish to raise in the interim position?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So on page 29, that table Kamaran referred to, verbal clearance supposed to be 13 September. We're looking at 19 September. With still council adoption on the 26th of October. The reason for that is we did receive some information late. The quality of information we received from management is really, really good. So we don't have any concerns there, but and it's not only here where I see it, it's when you wait for external parties, you wait for the valuers, you wait for someone else, because the valuers have got staff issues as well. They're not going to complete all revaluations this year. Now I'm going hopelessly too far. Just as far as Bob RC is concerned, I'm comfortable. If you look at that list, that's outstanding. And the information provided by management will get to 19 September? Yep. And October. Well, I'm working backwards. And then 26 October for council adoption.
Any other questions, queries, Councillor Winters?
Questions on the draft annual report, Mr. Chairman? So I'm looking at page 84 of the agenda, which is 53 of the annual report, and it talks about prudent debt management, Mr. Chair. And there's a comment there, and I thought I need to ask this. It says halfway through the prudent debt management, our net debt is $10 million, which means we have high liquid level assets. And I'm thinking, It's not right. Can I have an explanation? It's on page 84 of the agenda, 53 of the annual report, and that doesn't include PPS, does it?
So
I just need an explanation.
yes, I
Mr.
think
Chair.
Nolene will be able to explain how that's calculated for the annual report.
Sure, no problem. Councillor Winters, that calculation excludes the PPS, but it includes Toi Moana, as those shares are considered to be quite liquid. If we had to sell off any of the Toi Moana shares, we'd be able to sell that off rather quickly. That is what's impacting that calculation quite significantly. If you look at the investment that we've currently got in Toi Moana.
So it's net debt, so it takes into account the assets like Toi Moana Fund.
But I get confused, Mr. Chairman, and because when Standard & Poor's assesses us for our debt, they include PPS, don't they, in our credit rating?
Rating, yes.
Yeah, that's as a group.
As a group. So is there a sentence missing in that statement?
Say above that, our total borrowings is 216 million as of 30 June. Then you take it as 75 million invested in Toi Moana. That's taken off. And the share opportunities, etc. So you just maybe just explain how the difference between gross and net. What are the elements between gross and net?
What I can do after the council, after the risk and assurance meeting, is I can share that calculation with you and show you exactly what is included and excluded from that calculation, if that would help.
Yes, please. But if Joe Public picks up this and says, "Oh, council, you've only got $10 million worth of debt," they'll think, "Oh, it'll just raise a few heckles, Mr. Chairman." I just need a better explanation in there to say, while it's net, yes, understand that, but there's the PPS is not there.
I think you've raised a very, very good point for a reader, which we can adjust or expand more on.
Yeah.
How a layperson can read that and understand, the actual true position, not just the net debt of over 10 million, which is technically correct, but there's a whole lot of other liabilities, shall we say, in the group. Kamaran, you wish to add?
In line with the chair's comment on this, we can look to expand that to provide more context around the definition of net debt.
Well, thanks, Chair. Councillor Winters, you're absolutely right. This is accounting terminology, but what it doesn't show you is that the net debt position then compromises the cash expectation that this council expects from those investments in Quayside. And don't forget that the debt that's not reflected in here, that's sitting in Quayside, ultimately comes back to the parent.
Comes back to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've got another question, Mr. Chairman. I'm just flicking through the annual report to find it. Sorry. Carry on. I'll come back to it.
Committee members had any questions or queries of the report itself? Councillor McMahon.
It's probably not for this forum, but just with the climate change report, with the blue carbon research or assessment, and I may be completely wrong about this, but I'm thinking we're getting the results of that in your next monitoring and ops meeting, which is, I think, December. So I suppose reading this, I was like, oh, right. So all of that information is there. So it's probably more about, it comes out and gets published in our annual report before we've actually seen it in a meeting. But I may be wrong. Maybe I've missed something, and maybe this is information we've already been provided with. But I suppose it's just around that process of seeing something in a draft published annual report before we've had it presented to us as a report.
I think
am I right or am I wrong?
It's more of a timing issue, but because this comes up in this agenda as well as part of the internal audit from memory. Do you want to touch on it, Matt?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So this is the backward-looking report for last year's performance. What will go to monitoring and ops is the in-year performance and future performance targets. So yeah, so this is the backward-looking information. Kamaran, do you just want to comment on the timing of the information for the annual report?
Particularly around the blue carbon research, which I'm understanding we haven't had presented yet, but I may be wrong, or maybe.
Timing for the annual report. So we're looking to, sorry, unclear in terms of the timing is essentially adoption in the latter part of October on the 26th. So any further finalization through the audit process, council will essentially see that version on the 26th as part of that agenda.
Yeah.
That wasn't the question, was it? So the
Well,
question
it's just
was,
that this is a very condensed summary
Yeah.
of that piece of work that our staff have done. And my understanding is we haven't actually seen that piece of work presented to us
because it's coming to Monitoring Ops Committee.
in
Right.
December, but
Right.
here's kind of, yeah. Look,
So
it
it's
doesn't-
reported
no
here in the
problem,
annual
It's just
report.
understanding that process. And
Yeah.
I suppose in an ideal world, it's like, oh, I'd like to have seen that reported back to us before it gets published as a condensed kind of summary.
So has that information in the annual report, Kamaran, do you know,
I'm
gone
wrong.
to monitoring and ops during 22-23?
I'll have to check with the corporate performance team and advise on that and see if that's going to get visibility before the annual report. So I'll follow that up and come
It
back
may
to you.
be that I'm wrong and that this part of it has already been given to
I
us.
don't know.
No.
So apologies if I'm wrong.
What's in here in terms of performance information is as complete as it can be for the year in question. If there's anything else that's happening that's not disclosed in here, I'll follow up on that and come back to you.
Councillor Winters, from your other item.
Page 181, and it's the acquisition of PF Olsen. Look, we're in public here, so it says the purchase price paid for PF Olsen was 23 million. I'm just wondering whether that should have been made public or not. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, because it's the first time I've seen it.
Well, I must declare an interest as a director of Quayside, which and possibly you as well, Titaru. Now Matt has been raised around Quayside, so I want that noted in the minutes. But Matt.
Yes, so can you just explain how that flows through from the Quayside annual report to our annual report, Nolene?
Problem. That information is extracted straight from the signed Quayside financial statements or annual report. So that is information that's already gone out to public.
Oh, okay. And the couple of pages on, it says we're entitled to a directorship by Quayside onto PF Olsen. Do we have that person? Are they in place? I don't care who it is, but it is there. Yeah.
It's from the Quayside group, not from the council.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Quayside send a list of their director appointments to the regional council, so we'll have that somewhere. I don't recall off the top of my head who that might be, but yeah, Quayside make those appointments and then report those to council.
There's another one, Mr. Chairman. I'm still flicking. Oh, here we are on page 204. Remuneration of councillors, number 33. So I see what councillors are paid in the last 12 months and going back to 21, 22. And I'm just wondering why remuneration of directors, that we have Port of Tauranga directors on that list as well. Because we don't pay them.
No, they don't. We don't pay them directly. They are paid through the Port of Tauranga, but
Yeah.
because they flow in through our group results through Quayside, we disclose that information in our annual report as well.
Oh, okay.
That information will be on the public annual
Have we
report
always
of
done that,
Quayside
Mr.
as well.
Chairman?
Yeah,
Oh.
so it'll be on Quayside's annual report and it's therefore on our annual report as well.
And when I always thought in the annual report, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I always thought in the annual report we had all the professional development of councillors, we had, you know, travel, accommodation, all those in the annual report as well. Will that be in there?
So, through Mr. Chairman, you get an annual report on that from the governance team.
Yep.
So that's not
Yep.
part of the annual report, but you do get an annual report on that. So
Yep.
that is something, the information that comes to.
Does that not go in the annual?
Only the information on the total remuneration, amount spent on travel, training, anything like
Yeah.
that. That granularity comes on the report that governance provide to members. So that won't be disclosed in here, but it will be public information that we
okay.
disclose. There's one appendix that has that for each of the councillors. Yeah, so you're familiar with that, and that will come to you as well.
If you haven't had the chance yet, I would encourage you to go on the Quayside's website, and publications is the new latest annual report. I think it's of a very high quality. It's not just a whole lot of numbers. There's actually a lot of narrative around it about, you know, what they're actually doing on a range of projects as well. Any other questions, queries on the draft report to date that might be of assistance? It's fine. That's what we're here to do. Any other questions of the report in toto? Anything else, Leon or Warwick, you wish to add?
No, nothing from us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Looking forward to that sign-off date. So, councillors, we have a recommendation that we receive the report and progress and update. I'm happy to move. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Ron. I'll put that. All in favour say aye. Against, carried. Right, we now jump to page 240. And this is some more disclosure around expenditure and COHA report to year end, 30 June 2023. And we have a report here. First of all, any questions or queries around the report or commentary? Including the policy as attached. Staff, did you want to talk to any of the items?
Was there anything you wanted to add, Kamaran? Maybe refer to the information that's in public excluded as well as this, just so members are clear on why we have the sort of two sets of appendices.
Yes, so there's a few schedules attached to this. Essentially, the ones that the committee members would have seen in past, as part of past annual reporting processes, would have been the COHA spend and the supplier spend. The new element of the attachment that's been included for the first time here would be the elected members and leadership team sensitive expenditure schedules. The COHA spend and the supplier spend has been, there's two versions for that. One is in the public version, and the redacted version, and the unredacted version is in the public excluded, and that's for protecting private interests and commercial interests in regards to the filter there for that being public versus public excluded.
So you've gone to quite extreme lengths to get as much in the public section as possible without breaching an individual's privacy for good reason. What did you say about the elected members? That should be an open, shouldn't it? No reason why that should be in public excluded. It will be an open. Yeah. Thank you.
And that particular schedule is in response to an audit recommendation from the last financial year's audit, and that's in keeping with the Auditor General's guidelines.
So, members of the committee, did you have any questions or queries on any of the items in the report? I know, Councillor Andrew, you've asked for some further information, which should be on its way in terms of detail. If not, we have a recommendation on page 240, which is quite extensive and identifies the items both for COHA and suppliers, what is in the open and what is in public excluded, and the reason why, along with the policy. I'm happy to move that. To have a seconder? Thank you, Bruce. Is there any further discussion? Put that, all in favour say aye, against carried. Thank you, Kamaran. Now to 6.7, are we right, Jenny? The next report is the Chairman's discretionary fund, which is here for your consideration. There were 3 requests over the year, totaling $14,800. Are there any? Did you speak to it, Matt?
Just to add one further piece of information, Mr. Chair. So in the weekly briefing for councillors, I will send a link to a video that was received from Tauranga Intermediate students, the recipients of the Future Problem Solving funding. So there will be a link to a video that they've provided for you, for councillors to have a look at the end of the week. I don't know if Mr. Chairman, Chair Leader wants to comment on any of those discretionary fund payments, but all the 3 parties obviously very much gratefully received the funding from the Regional Council.
Chairman, they've been and gone and come back, and
yes,
how did they do?
I think the video tells a really good story, so I don't want to spoil it. But what's it? Yeah, what? Please watch the video.
Happy to move, Mr. Chairman, of the Chairman's discretionary fund.
We have a seconder. Thanks, Ron. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put that. All in favour say aye, against carried. Is Jess in the room? Not yet.
We'll be presenting this report, Mr. Chairman. Jess is joining us soon.
When are we going to see Jess?
Any second now. She is here today.
She's
in the building, yes.
Thank you. So now we have the report on the Local Government Official Information Meetings Act for the year. And welcome, Monique.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll take the report as read, and just if anyone has any questions.
Just to say, obviously, this has been of interest to a particular gentleman in Wellington, which is fine. And I think 5 councils, Bruce, were investigated, 8, sorry, in terms of how they approach this. And have we had any learnings from that? Has that report been released yet from the?
Is this in terms of the workshops specifically? So the report hasn't been released yet. So we will be keeping a watching eye when that comes.
We had 118 requests for information, and they're all listed here and how we responded. Any questions, queries of any of them or the report in general? Councillor Scott?
Yeah, just interested in the breaches of timeframe. So well done, so about 99.9% success. But I suppose a similar question, what can we learn from the one that didn't get there?
Through you, Chair. So one thing we do is do regular training with staff in terms of how we run our Lagoima processes. I think, yeah, we had 1 this year. We had none the previous year. But obviously we are always aiming for 100% response rate. And in that instance, the requester was very happy with the response that they received.
But the reason was?
I don't have that information in detail, but we can talk to the team.
Councillor McMillan.
Oh, not to do with this, but just in terms of your comment about the Wellington gentleman, I don't know anything about that, so it kind of seemed a bit cryptic to me, but
yeah,
if it's confidential, then that's okay.
Ombudsman has done an investigation / inquiry into how local government generally are treating information and access to the public. And he chose 8 councils as test cases. and did some deep dives into them. And we're just waiting for the report and any recommendations coming out of that. A most local one was Rotorua from memory in the Bay of Plenty, but they were up and down New Zealand. So he's, and rightly so, he's very staunch on making sure as much information should be publicly available as possible. And so here, I've raised it a couple of times. If there is a piece of a report that should be in public excluded, it doesn't mean to say the whole report has to be. So that's why you're seeing it being separated out now. So we have as much as possible in the public realm.
Thanks.
Monique, just I don't want to over fixate on dollars and numbers, but there was one was charged $500, and I hate to say it, but my eye was attracted to what I think is your costing the time and the work. So perhaps I'm not going to suggest that you're arbitrary, but why did one get charged when I can see some, you priced, I take it, staff time on all of those. There's a good number, for instance, above $500. I just wondered how you interpreted the policy for charging, bearing in mind I totally support the default position that we have.
So as through you two, we do take a default position that we do not charge. And if any staff member would like to charge, we ask them they come and speak to the legal team about that, because so that we can monitor that and ensure we're taking a consistent approach. In that particular instance, I worked with that team member, and it was a significant amount of information that went over a number of years. We worked with that particular requester to see if we could refine their request. They didn't wish to, and we still reduced the amount that it would have cost in staff time very significantly in that particular case. So yeah, we do work closely with staff to ensure we're being consistent.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or queries? If not, we have a recommendation that we receive this report. I'm happy to move that. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Chair. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put that. All in favour say aye. Against, carried. The next item is the internal audit annual report with Steve. Aaron, sorry, coming forward.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. Mr. Robertson. Pretty brief update on what we've done year to date. That shows the program is pretty much on track. The last two audits are nearing completion. That's the CDM Administrating Authority and the rates. On the open actions, it's been good to see a number of the older actions have been closed out. There's some steady progress on the remaining actions, and some of the actions raised this year have already been closed, which is quite good. Any questions?
Thank you, Aaron. Any questions of this update? I didn't have any. Nope. So we have a recommendation on page 281. I'm happy to move that. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Andrew. I'll put that. All in favour say aye. Against, carried. Now, before we go into public excluded, I'd ask Jessica, could you just come forward, please? Colleagues, Jessica Easton, and Jessica has decided to move on from this organisation and start her own empire, which I'm sure will grow into an empire. So congratulations on that step, Jessica. It's great. It's timely for your career. But we do want to acknowledge the transformation that you have made in this organisation, particularly in the legal team. The numbers show that, having an appropriate amount of skill sets within this organisation has been incredibly cost effective. And thanks to you, and I'm sure others within that team have made that work, getting that balance right between an in-house legal team and going external to maybe a range of lawyers for specialist work. So you've done that. I recall also your work in the public transport space when changing contracts. And I'm sure Councillor Andrew will note that as well. It was not the easiest piece of work in the world to do. And it was a big ticket item for us. It was a multi-million-dollar arrangement. And then, of course, we lent you out to the Hawke's Bay to support our colleagues in Te Rāwhiti and the Hawke's Bay as they went through, and are still going through actually, a horrendous experience, and using our skills we learned from Edgecombe and others, and you've been able to work with that community as well. So a great big thank you from us, and wish you all the best in your endeavours. I'm sure you'll pop along here in some shape or form at some point in time with your skill sets, and wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Say a very quick thank you, and it's been such a pleasure working here. It was my first local government job, and I've enjoyed every minute of it, even some of the more challenging experiences. But I'm very grateful to this council's support of building the legal and commercial services, and really I guess having that vision around the way that it can improve the many of the things that we do here. And I think we've achieved that. So thank you very much for supporting everything that we've done. Thank you.
So with that, yes, Andrew.
I'm just going to say, personally, I'm gutted because you didn't get permission to leave, and you've been an absolute godsend to the transport team in some very tough negotiations over time. And so I just want to thank you for everything you've done and wish you the best.
Right, with that, I think we'll adjourn for morning tea. Hopefully it's there. I'll regard the public excluded first as committee secretary. Thank you. So I'll move that we do move into public excluded. Thank you. Second by Deputy Chair Bruce. I'll put that on.